a new layer so that we're not working on top of this. And I'll show you actually what happens if you do try and work on top of this. You will be able to fill this in, and I'm just going to do it with black just to demonstrate. But first of all, if you have this fill similar colors thing checked, you're going to start filling in just like weird parts. You definitely don't want to do it that way. That's the wrong way to do it. So I'm going to hit undo twice with Control Z. If you do fill whole selection, which is a lot better, it'll fill in this whole selection. But look what happened. Our main image is now sort of destroyed. We can't see it anymore because there's other colors on top of it. So I'm going to hit Control Z again to undo that. We want a new layer. And that's this icon right here, this little plus. Page. And I'm going to leave the default, so I'm going to hit Control Z again to undo that. We want a new layer. And that's this icon right here, this little plus page. And I'm going to leave the defaults. So we have a transparency fill, that's fine, that's actually good. We'll still be able to see what's behind it. And everything else is set to normal. Hit OK. And now that we're on this layer, we can fill this in and it will not destroy the background at all. So we want a new color. I'm going to choose red. So if I click on this and choose red, sort of drag it up into the top corner, you'll see that I have these red, green, and blue values. Just kind of ignore everything else that's going on here. RGB is what we want. And if yours don't say 255, you may be on this mode, which is set to percentage values. You definitely want it on 255 so that you can kind of see what your RGB value is. That's the way Python is going to interact with these colors. So 255, 0, 0, click OK. Now we can fill in this shape. And just in case you've messed with any of these, I'm using a foreground color fill, meaning it'll use this color, fill the whole selection, and finding similar colors would only be relevant if I had this one checked. So these don't matter. And now I can fill this in. I'm going to deselect, select none, and I'll show you really quick. If I zoom in, if I use this magnifying tool set to zoom in, then I draw a little box around this. You can see that this is a nice jagged edge. And I say nice, I mean, if we wanted this to be smooth, it wouldn't be nice, but for our purposes, we want it to be nice and jagged. So you can show or hide layers with this little eye symbol that use to do that. Okay, so to zoom back out, just click here and go to 100%. We're going to create another box layer. So I'll get my lasso tool and I'll quickly click around these edges. And enter, and then we need another color. We'll do yellow. So if I click and drag this all the way up to 255, then we're good here for a yellow color. Bucket fill this in, deselect, and now we've got 2. And the last thing I want to do is create a new background, another color. O tool, and I'll quickly click around these edges and enter, and then we need another color. We'll do yellow. So if I click and drag this all the way up to 2, and if you hit this button right here, it'll make the colors back to black and white, and we want this foreground color to be down in between. And if you hit this button right here, it'll make the colors back to black and white, and we want this foreground color to be black. So I'll click right here. And now we have our mask ready to go, and we need to save it. So I'll go to File, not Save, sorry. We need to export as, and we're inside the Images directory still, so I'm going to back up, create a new folder called Masks, and it's still going to be called 01.png. So export, double check your advanced settings are all unchecked, and export. And now inside this folder we have an image. And we have mask. Then we're good here for a yellow of an image. This second image is a little more complicated, so I'm going to show you a technique using layers that should help a little bit. But the first step, again, is to come up to Image, Scale Image, 640 by 480. And hit scale and help a little. Step again is to come up to Image, Scale Image, 640 by 480. And hit scale and flip. Bring this back up again is to come up to image, scale image, .640 by 480 and hit scale, and we'll bring this back up. I'm going to put it at 200% zoom. So I'm going to use layers. I'm going to first start outlining around this plastic bin. I'm not doing it super precise here because the Cocoa dataset itself isn't even very precise, so it doesn't really make that huge of a difference, especially with these really tiny details. And then when I select around this box, I'm going to just kind of make this big shape here because I'm going to create layers that are going to go on top of it. So I'll hit enter, and we'll create a new layer, and I'm going to pick a color here. I'm going to pick green, and we'll create a new layer, and I'm going to pick a color here. I'm going to pick green, and I will fill it in like this, and I'll Control-Shift-A to deselect. Now I want to work with these other boxes next, so I'm going to hide this green one. And then I'm going to create a new layer first. Doesn't really matter what order you do this, but we got a new layer, and I'm going to do this box. And I'm going to cut just around this yellow shape. And this one, I'm not going to be super precise either because I'm going to overlap it with the other box. So I'll hit enter, and then this one, let's pick blue. And I'll fill this in on this layer. And now I want to point out, if I deselect, now it's got that nice overlap. So I didn't have to outline that twice because I used layers like this. I'm going to hide both of those and create a layer for this box. Kind of messed up there. Okay. Enter, create a new layer. Okay. And then I'll go with red for this one. Fill this in. And the last one, I'm going to do a layer, and I'll do this box right here. And the way I'm doing this one, I'll just finish it off like this because this is going to go underneath this red layer. I'll use magenta for this one. Fill it in. So now go underneath this red layer. I'll use magenta for this one. Fill it in. So now this one is on top. We don't want it on top. I want to drag it in between these two layers. And then I'll unhide these. And now, even though we've got a lot of overlapping, we didn't have to outline every single edge twice. So I need one more layer in between here in this bottom layer and the image.